Is Blake Lively done? Ron Zambrano's here to break down this monumental motion for summary judgment. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore. So glad to have you back, Ron. Welcome back to the show. Ron Zambrano, employment lawyer out in Hollywood to celebrities. You know this stuff. You deal with this stuff a lot, yes?
I deal with this stuff all the time. Unfortunately, I'm on the receiving end of these as these are typically done by defendants. But I know this stuff a lot, and this is a massive motion that is typically only 20 pages. And I don't envy Blake's attorneys at all.
Well, just so people who are unfamiliar, because this dropped last night, it's a lot to go through. There were hundreds of exhibits, lots of coming in, but we've skimmed through and recapped as best we can, as has Ron, but we're going to be reporting on this in days to come, imagine. So, but just overall, it felt to me, Ron, from what we've gathered so far and what we've read through, a solid summary. Really felt like it was written towards Lyman, just technically backed with citations and just undisputed stuff. Did you get that vibe right from what you've gathered? Was this well written?
Yes, this is incredible legal writing. It's incredibly cited. It is a thorough piece of legal work, a law and motion work. Very successful people already on this caption, of course, but this is an incredible. It's 49 pages and it reads very well. And as long as whoever has to rule on this is captured, and it's very capturing. I mean, it reads even the introduction, right? It reads like a story, and that is the balance and the art of writing legally is not only to get your legal point across, but to keep attention of the reader. And they do it in this intro. It's amazing.
Well, they do a really good job here. Right in the beginning, they talk about the context, right? That the theme kills the harassment claim, basically, because they hammer over and over again, the movie is sexual in nature. It's adult themed. It's based on a book with explicit scenes. It's being crafted collaboratively. And every incident she complains about happens within the creative context, which Lyman's mentioned a lot. And they frame it a lot by saying isolated, minor, not targeted or gender, quickly resolved, never repeated. So this is all very strong points. And again, like they say, the context of collaborating to make a central provocative film, which they hammer this out throughout, that's clearly on purpose, yes?
Yeah, that's a theme of not only this motion, but if it happens to get to trial, if parts of this case survive after this motion, it'll be part of their theme. And I think it's a very good theme to keep repeating to the jury.
So they also destroy the causation for retaliation. They list all the intervening events that sort of caused this, right? We've talked about this, you and I, how Blake took creative control. You've said it's in our trailer that if anybody took control, it lost anything, it was Justin, right? Fighting over credits, cutting him out of the edit, excluding him from his own premiere, putting him in the basement, disparaging him with his agents, stirring bad press herself with her PR people. I mean, Blake burying him, right, with the New York Times piece, which she was ultimately, I feel very clearly was manipulating with the sham lawsuit, etc. So this is another pretty dead point to rights, is it not?
It is. So context matters, and that is actually something important from the plaintiff's side. So for Lively, now she has to basically try her case on paper, saying, well, yes, under California law, New York law, the totality of the circumstances matter, but please avoid looking at all these things where I was very assertive. And maybe, and it's a good argument by Baldoni's team, she is the cause of some of her own damage, right? The New York Times piece is what caused everything. The CRD complaint being done under the auspices of supposedly confidential, but being leaked. Like most of this stuff, at least initially, and perhaps through today, is stuff that she caused on her own. And they're pointing this out. Like, listen, when it was brought up to us, we fixed it. All this other stuff is kind of her fault.
There's another big part I want to get to, because you're going to know this better than most, but the fact that she worked as an independent contractor, yet no contract was ever formed. They go throughout this in this section with a lot of sort of employment jargon, but that basically the council circulated a draft that anticipated a long form agreement between It Ends with the production companies and Blackle Inc. The actor loan out agreement, which was not, she never signed it. The draft conditions predestined included full execution of the agreement, receipt of executive document known as the inducement merger clause. Anyway, but the constitute the entire agreement between the parties, a provision prohibiting special or consequential damages, standard terms, including blah, 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 blah. How does this affect what's actually going to happen here?
Well, it actually doesn't have too much an effect other than it makes Blake look really sloppy. because most actors at her caliber will have these things, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, all ducks in a row before, like signing a loan out agreement. But from a potential legal standpoint, it will make it easier for linemen to go, listen, you may not have rights as an employee because you really are an independent contractor, which is a great point to bring up to Baldoni. And what I love about, I mean, by Baldoni's attorneys, and what I love about the way, and you can really see it through the table of context, a lot of the arguments are, this didn't happen, and the next one, even that did happen. It, this is another problem, and those two things happen. This is another problem. It really is an attack after attack after attack. It is so well written. They've given the judge so many ways to carve out or potentially dismiss the entire complaint.
Well, so yeah, because she's in control. They're proving she was negotiating things. She was moving locations. She was demanding script changes, edit power, refusing to sign contracts, right? But then there was no ALA, actor loan out, ever executed, which is pretty serious. The contract writer was not an independent contract. It only exists to be folded into the executive ALA. So there was no consideration from Blake, meaning it's void, and it requires a 30 days to cure. She gave neither. I mean, but all this is, technical, but this is all very important given the employment nature of it all and what our accusations are, correct?
Yes, it gives the ability. So everything is context, right? So a lot of harassment claims, typical harassment claims, really are egregious because things come from someone with power down to someone without power, right? It's like, the CEO asking out the receptionist out to lunch. It's that type of power dynamic. Here, you don't have that dynamic. In fact, it's kind of flipped. Blake herself was really asserting so much control, and Baldoni, I think, in reality, kind of knew this is an opportunity for me to use this as a springboard later. I'm not being harmed, at least not until the premiere. That's fine. But she is the one with power. So that dynamic has kind of flipped on its head through this argument, going like, you know who the aggressor was? This is what they're really saying. You know who the aggressor was? It was Lively. It was not Baldoni. The aggressor in this situation was Lively, and anything she complained about was part of the creative process. And even if we really didn't technically, legally have to fix it, we addressed it. Whether we addressed it and took it seriously, or we addressed it and tried to ameliorate things. This is part of the narrative, right? That is being done through this motion that I think will be repeated if some of the claims survive, which is not only, hey, this is a sexually charged workplace, not workplace, but thematic creative space because of the film, but also the plaintiff's the one with most of the power throughout this whole story. And I think that's such a good way to put it, which may actually technically here be against her interests for purposes of the harassment claim itself.
So there's so much going on. I want to get to they get to the smear campaign and how they do hit it right, how it's organic, no bots. A lot of the evidence that we're getting with texts confirm that as we see the chats between Melissa, Nathan, and everybody else. There's that you see multiple times Justin pushing back. This isn't us, right? And Melissa sort of confirming, absolutely not. We would never do that. Reiterating over and over again how organic this campaign was, and how Blake caused the backlash herself. And they also are never caught spreading false stories. There's several parts in this where like, it's not, he's allowed to put positive stories about himself out into the press. It's not illegal for Baldoni to promote positive content about himself or truthful narratives of various events. That Lively's reputation may have suffered as a result of her own ill-advised public statements and actions. This is despite about Hollywood reputations, not genuine legal wrongs. It does not belong in court. The kind of like amazing shot back at himself even, right? He's admitting, whoa, this isn't a thing. This is egos. Enough already. I mean, how strong is this in your opinion?
It's really strong, and I think it's worth explaining to the audience, what is this motion? So what this motion says is, Baldoni's attorney is saying, listen, judge, we want you to believe everything that's admissible, that is not objectionable under hearsay, but that's admissible, that Lively is saying, even things she's saying herself. We want you to believe her, judge. And even in all the evidence that is admissible and authenticated, that isn't like various layers of hearsay, please believe her, judge. And even if you believe her and you view it in the light most favorable to Blake, she cannot meet one or more elements of each of her claims. And that's it. That's all it is. And if the judge goes, you know what? I'm reading the evidence, I've read the arguments, and I see that there is no possible dispute as to an element, you cannot bring that claim. And on what you're asking us now, or asking me rather, about this particular defamatory statement, is that now Lively has to survive. Lively has to bring up evidence that Baldoni, in fact, was, or his team was intentionally putting bad press about her. And the problem is, it probably doesn't exist other than conjecture, which is what you're going through, right? In your case, like, we just think they're just not being honest. That's not good enough for purposes of trial. Remember, we've always been talking about there's a separate level of what can be discovered, but it's a much tighter rules for purposes of what's admissible at trial. So now we're at what can be admitted at trial, and her fear and her gut and or the attorney's guts is not good enough. She has to bring something for the judge to be like, okay, this is admissible, and the jury can decide whether Baldoni's emails are good enough for his position, or this one evidence that perhaps maybe Baldoni was trying to do something intentionally negative in the press, but we haven't seen it.
Yeah, they didn't get into like the fact that, okay, she suffered backlash, but they make it very clear, finally, really putting it clear that her own missteps were the significant driver in that response. They start putting out the examples about how she was cross-promoting during a film about DV, et cetera, et cetera. And then they get into this, which sort of how they smear again, and they get into the sham litigation, how she used a fake plaintiff, organized a subpoena to seize Abel's phones, feed it to the New York Times, dismiss the case. This is all litigation abuse, is it not? This is all finally in a thing that can be used for Lyman to finally take seriously. No.
Yes, and I agree with you. It is, but the reason I'm laughing is that they didn't need to put this in here for purposes of their legal argument. They're just piling on here. I mean,
this is a pile on at this point. Is it relevant? Will Judge Lyman even be able to? I mean, it seems like it should be, or is this sort of like a cherry on top of Lyman?
Yes.
I mean, because there's a part of me that this is so good, it makes Lyman look really bad. Like, how did this circus continue to go on tour so long? No?
Well, again, discovery rules are much more lax than evidentiary at trial rules. So Lyman up to this point, like, I'm going to let you guys play within the rules, but I think he's going to apply the correct trial level standards here because he has to. And with purposes of this is absolutely a cherry on top. We're just reminding you that they created a fake lawsuit to present evidence before the court. And now that should be ignored. And I think it's a very good reminder.
So they do a whole issue about how they are hugging everybody. I'm curious that there be no respect to hugging, and how that's literally what it seems to be the complaint. But then, okay, so Justin and Jamie are hugging people. They even provided evidence of the crew members and cast coming to hug Justin. I guess, like, my point is, like, as someone who deals with this type of law, et cetera, like, is that really going to be able to be used as harassment? If that's the worst of her claim, is that there was too much hugging and it made us uncomfortable?
I think as a matter of law, this is not sufficient for harassment because one of the aspects is that the conduct has to be unwelcomed. So there's no evidence, at least from what you just showed me and from when reading about the hugging, that it was not unwelcomed.
So what's next? Because there's so much more, and we'll have more questions. And please keep your questions coming for Ron so we can go through it. I guess why didn't Blake file her own motion? Is that normal?
Yeah.
Should that be a red flag to anybody, the fact that she didn't? And then I want to talk about, what do you think this is actually going to do? Do you think Lyman will throw this out? But before we get to that, why didn't Blake file her own?
So yeah, that's a great question. So normally the plaintiff, again, Lively is the plaintiff here. Plaintiffs do not file these types of motions because they want to get to trial. The only way you would file as a plaintiff, you would file a motion like this, is if you want the judge is if you have so much evidence that the judge would have to just agree with you that there is no triable issue of fact or genuine dispute of material fact, depends where you are. But basically, what does that mean? And that means that the evidence by both sides the judge says there's no point to give this to a jury. There's no dispute as to this element. You're saying something, the other side cannot dispute it. There's no dispute. I'm not going to waste the jury's time. I'm just going to make a decision because there is no dispute as to this fact. Lively didn't have that. And typically most in most defendants won't, I mean, excuse me, plaintiffs will have that because the defense are bringing up so much crap to dispute things like, no, we deny, and here's why, and here's why, and here's why. It's very, very rare, super rare with plaintiffs bring their own motions. That's why she did her motion to dismiss on the cross complaint, right? She's able to attack it that way, which is not technically this case. It's a different I mean, this type of motion, it's a different standard. But typically plaintiffs don't bring their own motions to dismiss because the defense has brought up enough to create a triable issue of fact or given enough for a jury to decide. The judges are saying, is there enough here that it should bother the jury? There's not enough, it can't go forward. There is enough, there is. And that's why on the topic we were talking before, I'm trying to remember it real quickly. Oh, with regards to the defamation, right? That with regards to the new series, Lively has to find admissible evidence that Baldoni was doing something to smear her. And it so far, we haven't seen it. So now she has to bring it from somewhere. It cannot be conjecture. Conjecture is not good enough. It's just not. Well, so that might be something the judge is like, jury's not going to hear that.
Well, and before we even get to what's going to happen with the win, but another point I want to bring up, they mentioned that Sony, Angie, whatever here, encouraged Baldoni to shoot an R-rated film. In fact, here's Sony for her. I will update Sony. You were going to try and get as much tasteful, hot X as you can. You find out we are PG-13. Will Colleen be okay? And does she think her readers will be okay? So you have Sony sort of pushing explicit scenes with Lively, Colleen Hoover, etc. as a woman at Sony. Does this hurt or help Blake's cause?
Well, it hurts Blake's cause because it really helps Baldoni's cause, right? Baldoni's like, to the extent there was any sexual energy in this work, it's because it's the nature of the work. People that were funding this, people of the creative process, people that wanted the film to be R. It's not me violating the rights of you as an employee, assuming you are an employee. It's the nature of the work and the context matters.
So is Sony at all, could they be liable for any of this? Can Justin go after Sony for sort of not picking a side and sort of throwing them under the bus? No, right?
No. I mean, Sony's just making creative decisions. And again, creative decisions within the context of truly creative, the creative industry is protected under the First Amendment and free speech. Or else they'll be, I mean, you know how litigious we are in California. Can you imagine in Hollywood?
Yeah, insane. So what do you think is going to ultimately happen at the end of this? Will this cause, you've seen how Lyman sort of report on things. Do you think this could actually get Lyman to throw it out?
I think Lyman will be throwing out a lot of claims. I don't know which ones, especially. I haven't really read the later ones, the later arguments. We should do, Andy. We should have a very a longer interview once we see the opposition to see if she gave herself a chance. And because we can see, and a lot of lawyers, and I'm happy to bring other lawyers to talk about, does this create a genuine issue of dispute, or is she reaching so far the judge is not going to let her, give her the benefit of the doubt, and it will be punted. It will be punted. But I think the whole thing about the smear campaign, where there's no evidence that he was trying to do anything negative to her. In fact, there's evidence that he was trying to make sure it wasn't him. She has to find something somewhere, and it can't be just, well, this is what I feel, and then my conjecture and speculation. It has to be admissible evidence. Now she's being hit with a higher standard. It can't just be, this is what I feel, and it's an open fishing season. It has to be admissible evidence. And now this is really about, putting your money where your mouth is.
So she's going to file an opposition then to the motion. So we'll wait for that. And I agree. I'd love to have you back. One thing Melcher said, he couldn't join us. I want to have you both, but he did say this, and I'm curious what you think. It's difficult to obtain summary judgment because there are usually facts that need to be determined by a jury. The judge does not have the power to make the findings on fact of complaint unless the parties waive the right to a jury trial. Do you think that is that true? Or you're just saying some of these are just going to be thrown out? Because it's just weird to me, because it seems, shouldn't Blake have to find the facts? It's like, even I feel this in my own case too. It's like I'm constantly over delivering and giving things that I should have never had to be bothered with. But then it's like, how long does Blake get to ring the SH bell to sort of get this? Yes, whatever you need, Miss Lively. Like, when is it enough? And is it true, or can this judge have enough? Yes, you've proven here. Blake has not proven enough. Agreed.
So you and Belcher are correct. The judge cannot make a factual determination. So what that really means is, when the opposition is filed, And Lively goes, Baldoni says this, and this is my response factually to that. If her response isn't good enough in the sense that it is not admissible evidence, or it doesn't really do a factual dispute, the judge can say that it does not create a dispute. The judge, am not making a factual, like, I believe Baldoni over you, Lively. I'm just saying Lively's evidence doesn't even create a dispute. You're talking about something else, or you're citing evidence that I will never admit at trial. The judge can make a legal finding that it doesn't connect enough to create a dispute. And to answer your question specifically, is it enough? Now, Lively has to basically try her case on paper, right, with admissible evidence. Her response has to be, this is what I'm going to present at trial, judge. Please don't kick this out.
Not to interrupt, she does have to give that at some point beforehand, yes?
That's her opposition. Her opposition has to give it. It cannot be, it has to be admissible evidence. I have emails, I have text messages, I have witnesses. This is not only like I have witnesses and I'll bring them later. I have witnesses, and here's a declaration from that witness. She has to basically try her case on paper. And it cannot be this, well, I believe, and information I believe. That is no longer good enough to oppose this. And that's why I'm very interested to see, and I'm sure people that aren't in the space I'm in aren't as excited as, let's see what she brings to oppose this, because it has to matter. And it has to be admissible in court. She basically has to try her case on paper to oppose this.
And that's gonna have to happen quickly, I imagine. That's probably due soon.
That's typically 4 weeks from the motion being filed and served. Well, the file and service are the same because it's electronic. So it's typically 4 weeks from yesterday or today, whatever it was. But yeah, it's fast, especially when you're opposing 50 pages. Someone's calendar just got cleared for 3 weeks.
Right. But then Lyman, is he going to report on this before her opposition comes out, or is he going to wait?
He's going to wait. He has to wait to
got it. Okay.
Yeah, under due process, he has to wait. And then the moving party sometimes has an opportunity to reply to the opposing evidence. There's probably a hearing that's been set. I didn't see it in the papers, but the judge can rule on it only after getting the opposing and sometimes reply papers.
But I imagine he's now taking this to gather, okay, yes, and then going to compare that to the opposition brief of, were they able to overcome and prove that? Is that what I assume that the next step for the judge?
The next step for the judge is to see if the evidence is admissible and actually disputes the assertions brought in the motion. So for instance, I keep bringing up the smear campaign. What evidence it actually creates any dispute where a jury, if they were to believe it, would be, hey, yeah, Baldoni was creating negative press from his team. What evidence exists from that? Because Baldoni,
because they're trying to make this whole, they deleted signal chats, Your Honor, so we can't prove it. Can that actually hold up?
No, it won't hold up. No, because that's hearsay.
So they need the evidence. That's what we're waiting for. I agree. That's literally what we've been waiting for this whole entire time. I feel like is for Blake to finally drop some evidence. And now that she's had the discovery, there's no more excuses to it. Now's the time. So in a few weeks, we will get that. I would love to get you back. We'll do a lawyer panel. I love it. Let's do a bigger show. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for all alerts. It's just getting juicy now. Smash that like button. We got so much to go through these docs. We will be covering this in the next few days, and we'll be live this week as well. So stay tuned. I don't know where we put this video, but we got a lot more coming. Hit the subscribe. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming here on Popcorn Planet. And thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. Always fun.
So much fun.